the challenges surrounding the COVID-19 pandemic, economic, social, and behavioral response to the epidemic. At the beginning, I would like to underline that this symposium is dedicated to Professor Remzi Örten. As you know, that Örten passed away last month. As an organizing committee, we would like to inform all of you that this symposium is dedicated to dear my professor, Remzi Örten. Always we remember Professor Örten with respect and mercy. Dear guests, we all experience an unprecedented situation with the global COVID-19 pandemic. We know that coronavirus disease is an infection disease caused by a newly discovered coronavirus. The World Health Organization defines coronavirus disease as a pandemic since an outbreak of a new pathogen that spreads quickly from person to person. Because of the rapid spread of the coronavirus through droplet paths and physical contact, governments had to take some restriction and some prevent to fight the COVID-19 pandemic. Countries have gone to lockdowns, travel restriction, closure of the school, suspension of the education, cancellation of the crowded sports, cultural, arts, and scientific activities are some of the other precaution action of the countries. In other words, a virus not visible to the naked eye has put the world on pause. This will also have social and psychological effects. Remote working system and distance education have been carried out. Not only pandemic has been a virus in the economy, education, and social life, but also a digital world has settled in our lives. Maybe most significant impact was seen on our economy. Production has been reduced and halted by the lockdowns. The IMF estimates global output have fallen by 3.5% in 2020. And all countries, whatever big and small, rich and poor, have been hit by lockdowns. Uncertainty and anxiety have played an important role in consumption, and therefore demand shocks have occurred. Travel restrictions have strained supply chains, logical process, massive problems in the production, demand and supply chain have affected economically negatively, and growth expectations have reversed. Unlike e-commerce and food retailers, some sectors like tourism, transportation have become unable to survive. Countries have to deal with macroeconomics issues such as inflation and unemployment. Another significant impact is seen on education. Distance education has to be taken into account for our safety and our health. Not only learners, but also lecturers had to adapt a new normal system. The second day of the symposium, we are going to have a special session in which researchers from prominent university debate emergency remote education. I would like to share some numbers about our symposium. Last year, we conducted first symposium. As you see on the slide, last year, the main theme is digitalization. We had 6 keynote speakers and approximately 50 papers were submitted. This year, the interest to our symposium has increased hugely. This year, the main theme is about the coronavirus, and there are some huge interest to our symposium. If you look at the numbers of this year, you can see that nearly 150 papers will be submitted to our symposium. Approximately, we have 40 sessions. This year, we have top universities, as you see in this slide. 25 papers from Ankara HSB University, Samsun University, we have 14 papers, and Çukurova, Hitit, Yozgat, Gazi, and another university, you can see paper came from these universities. Approximately 40 papers written by English, and other papers written by Turkish. Approximately 300 researchers from 65 different universities. We are going to listen this symposium. I would like to give some information our keynote speaker in this year. First keynote speaker, Professor John Traxler from the University of Wolverhampton, United Kingdom. He will give a speech about the impact of the COVID-19 on education and emergency remote education. Second keynote speaker, Professor Francisco Lopez from the Spain, University Complutense de Madrid. She will give a speech about the tourism and marketing. Third speaker is Monika Bolek from the University of Lodz, Poland. Bolek will give a speech about the impact of the COVID-19 on financial markets and the stock market crash. Third one, Professor Sevil Kerimova from Azerbaijan State University, Azerbaijan. Kerimova will give a speech about the social life, social distance, and human behavior. And finally, Professor Zheng Eng from the Guangdong University, she will give a speech about the impact of the COVID on tourism and marketing. Finally, we have a keynote speaker from Turkey, Muhsin Atçı from the biggest Turkish, one of the biggest manufacturing company. He's a risk manager of the company. He will give he will offer his opinion about the manufacturing company in this session. I want to thank our guests once again for sharing their time with us. I'm pleased to host you all in virtual meetings. Moreover, we are glad to bring together professionals all around the world with the theme of the challenges surrounding COVID-19 pandemic, economic, social, behavioral response to epidemic. Before ending my speech, I would like to offer special thanks to Symposium Organizing Committee and sponsors. Although it is not an economically comfortable environment, they have financially supported scientific activities. I would like to share their game with you. Karar Auditing and Consulting Company, Gazi Publishing Company, Fifner Instrument Company, Parantes Technology Company, and finally, academician unions are supported to our symposium. Your support for science is deeply appreciated. Thank you all for joining this virtual meeting. I once again extend my greetings and respect to you all. I wish the symposium success. Thank you very much for your listening.
Thank you, Professor. Now we continue with our first keynote speakers, Muhsin Atçı. I want to introduce him before he gonna make his speech. Muhsin Atçı, having graduated from Istanbul University Department of Public Administration, Atçı completed his master's degree on international taxation at Duke University Sanford School in 2014 and worked as an internship and short-term consultant at the World Bank in the same year. He still continues his doctoral studies in the field of finance at Hacı Bayram Veli University. Starting his career in the Ministry of Finance, Atçı received the title of Revenue Controller in 2008 and served as Deputy Head of the Department of Administrative and Financial Affairs of the Ministry of Finance between 2010 and 2012. Atçı, who started to work as the head of the large-scale taxpayers group in Ankara in 2014, served as the vice chairman of the board responsible for electronic audit applications and information technology branches at Tax Audit Board between 2017 and 2019. Holding the titles of sworn-in CPA and independent auditor, Atçı left position in the public sector in 2020 and works as group tax and risk manager in Grok Group of companies, which is one of the leading companies in manufacturing of table glass and glass packaging. As I give the word to Mr. Atçı.
Okay, thank you. Let me start with my share my screen. And I guess it is okay.
Yes.
Yeah, honored members of academia, dear guests and participants, greetings to everyone. Good morning. First and foremost, I want to thank the people who are responsible to organize this symposium. And it is a great pleasure to get the chance of speaking here. Thank you for this opportunity also. It is really a tough time for all of us and for all the mankind actually. We have been experiencing really unprecedented times and we have not a definite information how long it will take. It means we have huge uncertainty and as you know, uncertainty is the main obstacles of investment and growth. Before I talk about the pandemic, I want to remind you the pre-pandemic year, which is 2019, was yet another irregular year for the global financial markets and the global economy. And as you know, the US-China trade war was undoubtedly the key driver throughout the year. We remember tariffs again and the taxes as a weapon, but damaging not only both sides, also the whole world economy. And also we had Brexit and Hong Kong riots in different parts of the world. These are all caused the uncertainty. And uncertainty is the, as I mentioned, the main obstacles of the growth. So at the end of the year, the growth rate fell into 2.3%, which is lowest growth rate of the decade, actually. And so the pandemic broke out at the end of the 2019. It was the Chinese problem, but for the rest of the world, but now it is now whole world problem, maybe other than China. If we are looking at the pandemic, actually we have three phases. This phase are rescue, recovery, and building. Rescue phase is the most difficult one for governments and for the people. The government needs to fight against the disease without sufficient knowledge and equipment, and we have even shortage of to reach medical equipment. For instance, we haven't get facial mask or latex gloves or sanitizers, something like that. And government needs to somehow stop the toll of the death tolls and the spread of the virus, but because nothing is important than the human's life. At this time, we have also people were in panic. Actually, also the government in panic. So we witnessed a different scene. Maybe you remember. People were fighting against each other, last package of toilet paper, and the rush on the pasta in the market. Even in Turkey, you remember the first decision about the curfew for the weekend taken by the government just 2 hours early before the midnight on Friday night, and people sudden rush into the street and run to the markets. And even there were really long line in the gas stations. It was really interesting why people wants to buy gas for 2 days curfew. So it is, I guess, it's relating with the uncertainty, and the people have no idea what comes next, actually. So government takes measures and still taken and to prevent this spread of the virus, but these measures have adverse effect on individual consumption habits, production process, and employment, as you know. The coronavirus outbreak also caused widespread concern and economic hardship for consumers, businesses, and communities, not only one country, all around the world. Especially from the aspect of the manufacturing sector, which employing millions of the workers in the world, hit hard during the first panic. I guess the outbreak really hit hard the manufacturing sectors because of two reasons. First, many manufacturing jobs are on site, and you cannot be carried out that kind of jobs remotely. So if you look at this table, maybe it is easy to work remotely for education, computer science, or financial operations, or sales management, but it is really difficult to work remotely, especially the construction, farming, which are mostly the manufacturing sectors, really vital for the keeping supply chain in this case. So governments needs to support the companies, and because the support packages are crucial to keep supply chain running. But now, at this point, government has a really interesting situation. There's a kind of dilemma. You need to stop the virus, the spread of the virus, and stop it to prevent death tolls. But so you need to keep the people inside. But at the same time, you distribute the money to the companies or individuals. So again, you need tax in this case. If you increase taxes, it's another problem for the companies. It was really difficult management process for the government. But compensation of the economy was vital, and especially the fiscal expansion really important, made really important contribution to the people. Also, central banks, you remember, reduced the interest rates and the liquidity injections made and provide credit for the companies. So for some sectors, pandemic worked good actually. They were lucky sectors. We haven't get a problem with the financial system, which is really vital for the economy. And pharmaceutical companies also among the winners. Also, electronic marketplaces are meeting point for consumers and producers. And logistic companies popped up, everywhere. If you order something, they're promising to bring you in 5 minutes. And it's another industry for new future, actually. And tech companies, as you know, as we are doing now, everyone need to work remotely or joining a conference remotely. So they provide lots of opportunities, and thanks to advance of technology, we still survive. Actually, we are doing our jobs, and still economy began to recover thanks to this advantage of the technology. So, and the sectors, actually, there was another effect of the pandemic. Sectors that friendly with the nature gaining ground in this case. And my company, actually, it is, which is a major manufacturer of the glass container. And there's a really interesting and important awareness of the environmental problems. So we lost, for instance, our export a little bit because of the border closure, but increase of domestic demand just compensate all our loss. So the owner of the company continue to invest in new factories. So the beginning of the year, thanks to this increase in the domestic demand, the new factory opened and provide hundreds of people's new employment opportunities. So it is, I guess, really important to support the government with trying to invest on and insist on to invest actually at these disaster times. So after recovery, after rescue phase, we are now experiencing recovery phase. Maybe in the mid 2020, the markets start to recover, and especially in the fourth quarter of 2020, most economies and companies showed signs of recovery. But it was uneven intensity because of the different spec of the sectors. Global GDP growth is now projected to be 5.6% for this year, but yesterday IMF revised this number as 6 point, which is really good and good news for the future. I guess world output is expected to reach pre-pandemic levels mid-2021 and this year, but it depends on the race between vaccines and emerging variants of the virus. We have still problem with the virus. New variants just can come up every day. Hearing new issue about this pandemic. So as we move out lockdown, it is time maybe to consider a new set of policies, especially relating with the extension of short-time work and possible temporary subsidy for re-employment, and especially some tax holidays or regarding with the issues easing the burden of the companies relating with the taxation. So more generally, I guess radical fiscal measures must be replaced with the alternative, and to sustain this recovery period. Now, if we are talking about recovery, vaccine rollout is really gaining momentum, but it is crucial, critical issue. So still some countries, even in the European Union, governments are complaining about to reach the vaccination. We have still some anxiety about this, and it hopefully it would cause see the W shape and the growth rate, because second tip is really most damaging than the first one, I guess. Next step. So, but the promising issue is the last time the world faced this kind of dark times, we experienced the establishment of the current global financing system. Just let me remind you the establishment of the IMF and the World Bank. now we expect to get a new, future for all of the mankind. So the next step is the actually building phase. We should name this rebuilding phase. So it is really important for the companies, manufacturing companies, to switching to new products and the way of producing. So these new products and process should be implemented by manufacturers, and if who can do this, they can survive, I guess. And the development of several effective vaccines more less than 1 year, really important achievement, and it is really stunning actually. So it shows us the power of the research and international collaboration. If we may need to rebuild the future more resilient for the next cases, scientists talking about upcoming different disease, and that kind of stuff would be possible. So we need to increase our capacity. So capacity building is really important in terms of not only the medication or medical facilities, but also for economically, we need to increase our capacity. And as I mentioned, people now are more aware of the importance of access to local green and real blue spaces. We are losing pretty much during this capital system effect and consuming so much. At the end of the day, we notice actually we really need to that kind of space around us. So during COVID, public awareness on environmental issues increased. So global environmental emergencies such as climate change and biodiversity loss or contamination of the oceans could cause social and economic damage for far larger than those caused by COVID-19. And it is really important to humanity notice that the big threat is coming, actually, in terms of environmental issues. So when we are talking about rebuilding the future, we need to consider this problem also. So well-designed rebuilding policies, I believe, can cover several of the environmental problems at once. So we need to state the important statement, actually, nothing more precious than people's life. So we need to also save our home, first of all. So, and thank you for listening to me. Thank you for your patience.
Sorry. Thank you, Mr. Atçı. Is there any question that you want to ask to Mr. Atçı? Anyone? You can write it on chat. No. Thank you very much.
I want to ask a question, Tuba.
Sure.
Thank you very much for your fruitful presentation, Muhsin Atçı. I wonder your opinion about the international investment decision and corporate tax rate. As you know that there is a high on agenda in Turkey. Turkish government increase corporate tax rate. There is a relation between international investment decision and corporate tax rate. What's your opinion?
Okay, thank you, Professor, for this question. Actually, it is my own area, actually, taxation. And we experienced for a long time bottom to raise to the bottom, actually, in terms of corporate tax rate. The companies or governments need to attract the companies' investment. But now this time, the OECD, especially some supranational institutions, especially force the governments to increase or regulate their tax system with the international rules. And it is really important to distribute these tax rights fairly. And now there is a really deep effect of the pandemic. Actually, now central governments are really strong, and everyone needs to attract investments. So it is, I guess, we have not so much actually a solution to increase our budget incomes. Because if we think about indirect taxation, for instance, it is caused, the inflation, first of all. And if we talking about increase new money, increase the, liquidity in the economy, it's another problem for economy, and it is cause also the inflation. So the corporate tax rate is increasing. The corporate tax rate is important, and especially developing countries, the tax rate, the income sources, 60% to 30% to direct taxation. But for the developing countries, it is we can say totally the opposite side. So I think it is the only way to create new income for the government, and the government really needs income because of this pandemic.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much, Mr. Atçı, for your participation and beautiful speech. Now we continue with another keynote speakers. I give the word Professor Shahnaz Koçoğlu. Yes.
Okay, thank you so much. So actually we were supposed to hear this speech from Professor Bolek at 12:30, but we said that why not we hear her speech right now. So I think Bolek is ready, right, Professor?
Yes, I am.
Thank you
Yes,
so much for
I am.
joining us. Thank you so much for your valuable contribution. We're so proud to have you here. Actually, we have known each other for a while with Professor Bolek. She is very into Turkey and she visited our country for many times. And actually, she traveled around Turkey more than I did so far.
This year, I'm planning to repeat it. So for 2 months, to go to East and back. Yes, I'm fascinated by the culture and the openness of Turkish people. So thank you very much for your stability. Thank you, really.
Thank you so much, Professor Bolek. So we will hear about her speech, and the speech is about the Poland and Turkish economy and their reaction to the pandemic. And it's a very interesting speech because these two countries are both emerging economies and we expect them to react in the same way. So we're so excited to hear you, Professor Bolek. Thank you so much. It's your turn. Thank you.
I will add the United States analysis as well as a benchmark.
Yes.
And well, so let's see the results of the research, and there's some introduction. I hope that
you can share your screen, I guess.
Everything. I'm not very familiar with Zoom, and I hope that you can see the presentation right now.
I think there is a button at the bottom of the screen. It says share your screen. It's a green box. You don't see it?
No, I do, but okay, right now it's working. Sorry.
Okay.
Sure. Not very professional.
No, just you're so professional, Professor. Thank you so much. We see your screen. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So now let's present. All right. I'm representing the University of Lodz in Poland, and I would like to start with the title of the speech that was related to the impact of COVID-19 on financial market and the stock market crash. As the speaker before said, the crash ended and market started recovering. But let's see the agenda. So I want to go through this financial crash a little bit just for the introduction. Then I will talk a little bit about financial market during the times of pandemic and discuss the case of Turkey, United States, and Poland, presenting the recent presentation and some conclusions. As we know, markets are containing each other because they are working 24 hours a day. So this contagion effect is found significant, and there are many instruments that are traded on this financial market that we should focus on, which is stocks, bonds, futures, options, and forex market. So the reaction is quite effective and containing each other from the east to the west. We can see the results, but the question is if the markets are behaving in the same way. So, what was 1 year ago? It was a shock when in February, together with first information about the pandemics, possible disease or pandemics started spreading around the world, the indices started reacting. So investors were becoming a bit thrilled, panic, and so we can see the result that they were falling 4-5% at the wave of crash started that time. In March, we can see the most significant falls, and for example, in March the night, Standard & Poor's 500 fell 7% in 4 minutes, yeah, after exchange opened. So the trading was halted for 15 minutes that time, which is not very happening very often. The same was in Europe, just like the fall of more than 20% below the peak in the year. And we can see that in the end of the March, or in March generally, the stock markets, they declined over 30%. So when we start from the east, like Nikkei was falling, then European stock markets, then Dow Jones, so the contagion effect was very visible. And well, that time, I hope we all remember the situation, everything was closed. I remember myself doing huge shopping. There was really no toilet paper, for example, at stores, so it was limited because people started purchasing the fundamental products to survive because of panic. So the same was on the markets, of course, because investors were panicking, not knowing the future. And of course, the stock market is not the only market that we take into consideration when talking about financial markets. And that time, bonds or debt instruments started reacting together with the national banks. The national banks started supporting or making decisions for the economy. And for example, the Fed, US Central Bank, announced it would buy 500 billion of treasuries and 200 billion of government-backed mortgage securities over next few months. So such information influenced the market, and we need to remember that the bond prices are inverse correlated with the reaction of stock market. So the lower the interest rates are, the higher the prices of bonds. So the same was offered by the European Central Bank with the bond buying program named the Pandemic Emergency Purchase Program. And also the Chinese, they started helping the company by just supporting companies. So that time, the Chinese corporate bond defaults fell over 30% because of the help from the Chinese government and bank system. Well, so that was that time, but now we have 1 year cycle of pandemics. Many things happened, and so I'd like to present you the results of the findings that the research I did together with Dr. Bolek about the cases influencing the stock exchanges, basing on this free markets that was mentioned in the beginning, namely Turkey, Nasdaq from United States. For Turkey, for the Istanbul Stock Exchange, the HU 100 index was taken into consideration, Nasdaq for United States, and VIG 20 for Poland. In fact, if you consider American indices, it doesn't really matter whether you use Standard & Poor's or Nasdaq or Dow Jones, because when I was analyzing it, they are behaving plus minus the same way. Well, so let's see the results. I was really curious about the results. It was my idea to compare these free markets. In fact, as it was mentioned in the beginning that Polish and Turkish markets are similar. I did some researches earlier about the behavior of markets, and they are in fact similar, although Polish market is considered as a developed market. In 3 years' time, in fact, OECD will announce it, because it must be confirmed year after year, but it is shifting for the developed markets right now, and I hope that Istanbul Stock Exchange and Turkish market will follow us, and together we will join the community of developed markets. It is expected to find differences between markets' reactions to the number of cases, because pandemic, what is interesting when I did the research analysis, maybe a global case, but the reaction is locally specific, and markets, they contain each other, they just follow the pattern, but in fact there are some differences. There are some issues, main issues that may be regarded in relation to COVID that is influencing the financial market. So what we have found that the pandemic can influence the business and the financial markets both in positive and negative way. It depends on the sector, for example, and the results generally are difficult to predict, especially it was very difficult to predict in the beginning. And so the investors, they react irrationally to new information because of the behavioral cases. The behavioral finances are developing sharply right now, and the explanation for the reality regarding the biases, the sentiment or herding effects, the findings and research are quite large. And what is also important, that fundamentals describe the change of prices in a lower degree than they should. And when you analyze the capital market ratios like price earnings, you can see that this relation between the price and earnings is growing. And it is therefore expected that the market does not reflect the real macro and microeconomic values assumptions. But I strongly believe that pandemics can heal the situation, and the fundamentals will be more linked to the price of shares on the market after more active individual in the investors. What is happening right now that people staying at home, and they have very often they have more resources. They are not spending so much money on restaurants or cinema. So especially in United States, it was found very important as a very important factor that more and more individual investors started investing on the exchange, and they broke the domination of huge investment funds right now. So for the very first time. There are some other issues like the policymaker, the response and the active role, the lockdown that can, of course, it influences the situation and also affects some sectors like restaurants, tourist agencies, some companies, their behavior in a negative way. But some companies, they grow enormously. There is a case on the Polish, the Warsaw Stock Exchange, of Allegro company that was introduced to the market during the times of pandemics because it's a internet portal to purchase and sell goods. And so they debut IPO was very successful that time. So we cannot consider it as a, the pandemic as a global negative problem only. So let me talk about methods. So of course, daily data were not possible to be taken into consideration because we have announcements about COVID cases daily, also during the weekend, and exchanges are not working during the weekend. So we decided to work on weekly data and calculate all the average, or the change, like the rate of return, or the relative change of number of cases in this research. And so let's start with Turkey. And what's interesting, the small graph is showing the situation from 2008. I wanted to show also the times of the financial crisis, 2008, 2012. And as you can see, the indices value is growing. On the big graph, you can see the situation during the 1 year cycle of pandemics from March to March this year, March 2000, March 2001. And the behavior of the market, the trend is growing all the time. Of course, we have ups and downs, and it can be confronted with the announcement of new cases, but the market is the upper and the upper line is the close, and the lower line is the cases change. So there is no direct, let's say, for this peak in December 10th. I remember that there was the announcement of huge number of cases in Turkey. That was a correction, I suppose. This is what the World Health Organization mentioned. Generally, the situation looks like you can see for Turkey. And so there are the numbers, sorry, and there are the close relative changes. This one, I'm sorry. And so now it is more visible that the reaction for the changes is more correlated, and there is a correlation. So I'm trying I have half an hour, I know, so I want to finish on time. So for Turkey, results are as follows: that when the relative changes of number of cases and index values are taken into consideration, so the correlation is negative, it is significant. And what is very important, that investors react immediately to the information about the changes of number of cases, and there is no further correction in time, because we were analyzing this problem with some delays up to 4 weeks. So there is information about quite high efficiency of the market. And even though when we can see the results of the regression, the significance was found, and the adjusted R-squared was on the level of 35%. So the number of changes of COVID is influencing the stock in this indices index in 35%. So this is the result for Turkey. And now let's see the United States. And so situation is quite similar. So the market is growing from 2008. And during the pandemic, there was a sharp reaction in March, and it started in February, and it is confirming the analysis in the beginning of the presentation, and markets are growing in time. So there are the weekly number of cases, and what is important, there are these changes that were calculated. So now we can see that close relative change is, especially in March, reacting to the cases growing information. And so for the United States, the situation is a bit different, because we can see that there is a significant correlation for immediate reaction and for 1 week delay. So it's like the information about the changing number of cases is acquired to the prices with some delay. Investors maybe they want to prove themselves that really the situation is getting better or is worsening. So we can see longer periods of reaction, and when the panel data or OLS regression analysis is provided, so we can see that the adjusted R-squared for this factor is lower than for Turkey. So it means that COVID-19 information about new cases is not so important for the price. There are other factors that are determining the change of the indices. And now Poland. Poland pattern is more variable, as you can compare. And there was a sharp loss in value in March and April. Then we have another one, because it was about, so I can tell you because I know this market, and we had the presidential voting in June and in the beginning of August. And so government was assuring the society, people, that the situation is under control and it is good, even though in the end of July, the number of cases started growing. In October and November, the markets were surprised that that was the time of second wave, as we say, that there were more than 30,000 cases that time. So the reaction was sharp, and investors were surprised. There are the weekly number of cases and the close of the indices and the situation is you can see that this October, November, December time is very difficult for Polish market, and there is the reaction that the better picture of the situation is when we take into consideration the relative changes, and Polish market is much more variable, and all the results, I'm sorry, not this one, not this button. So the results indicate that there is a negative reaction of Polish investors within 0 delay and 1 week, but in 4 weeks time, there is the correlation becomes positive because there is a correction. So first, the markets react in a negative way, but too much comparing to the situation. Then it appears that it is not so bad, and then there is a correction. So this market is the less efficient when we would like to talk about efficiency. But what is interesting that the adjusted R squared is very high comparing to Turkish and American market, which is on the level of 54%, indicating that the information about COVID-19 is important for Polish investors. We also perform the differences analysis between markets, and I indicated the results about the efficiency of the markets and the reaction, but also the t-test with Fisher pattern was analyzed for the correlation coefficients, and the Turkish market does not differ from other markets, because the statistically significant difference was found between the correlation coefficients between Polish and American markets. So these markets differ when the correlation is taken into consideration, but when Turkish market is compared to Polish and American market, there are no differences in market behavior represented in the indices and the reaction. So just to sum up, I hope it's not too long. Of course, we have we can see the differences between market reactions to the information, but the question that arose when I finished with my paper was why stock markets recovered, in fact, and so fast, because it was the 1 month of a crisis, and then we could see the growth. And of course, large caps, I gave the example of the most known American companies. So they were earning on it. They are so flexible, and their model is so flexible that they started earning even more on the pandemic. And of course, many sectors adjusted as well and benefited from it, like health sector, the courier, logistic. Uh, of course, there is huge fiscal stimulations in every state. What I was mentioning was this large investments of individual investors. We started at home investing as well, just sitting at home, thinking about what to do with money. We invested in Bitcoin, we invested in foreign rates, and just we bought new TV set, yeah, because of funny times, let's say. But it also was influencing the market because individual investors, they behave in a different way than the professionals. Also, the work on vaccines and its delivery, that is extremely fast. Can you imagine 1 year ago that we could have the vaccine after 1 year? It was less than 1 year, yeah, because Pfizer delivered the first vaccination to Poland, for example, in December, and the first vaccination started in December. I guess in Israel it was even earlier. It is well, very optimistic, and people, they feel this optimism, and they also influence the prices of financial instruments. And so we also have to remember that every crisis is a motor of development. So of course, people are dying, and it's bad. But these waves of the weak companies are vanishing, and strong companies, well managed, they are getting stronger. So I'm optimistic, and I believe that when it is done, our economies will be stronger and fair valued because of this situation. And some markets are now more experienced, more immune after 1 year of pandemic. And well, I'm optimistic, and this is my voice in this discussion, and I hope that you found this presentation interesting. I would be glad to answer to any questions, and thank you very much for
Thank you so
your
much.
attendance. Stop share.
Thank you so
Yes.
much, Professor Bolek. Actually, I found the presentation very interesting because I agree with you about an issue. You said that there is something irrational behind the stock market crash starting in March. I think the reaction was harsh and the investors were not behaving rationally. But I think right now, they are not behaving rationally as well, because I think there is a kind of positive bubble in the market. You know, the stock price of Tesla, Moderna, the pharmaceutical companies, the technology companies, the stock prices are increasing dramatically. And I just cannot find a reason behind this bubble. I think there is a bubble right now because, yes, I'm optimistic about the future. I just believe in the vaccination. But at the end of the day, the things are not going perfectly in these days, but the stock market is going up and up. So I think there is something irrational right now as well. What do you think?
The growth potential that is included in the price on stock market, as Miller and Modigliani said, it is the present value of the future investment project.
Yeah.
And when we consider Tesla, for example, which is a very good example, we can see that the Elon Musk is performing crazy projects, but this crazy project may bring him in the future huge cash flows. It might be a bubble, but we never know if it is bubble until it is over.
It explodes. Yeah.
Yeah. So, so right now, I just when I consider the separate businesses that are growing very fast, so I can see this potential. And well, but you know, I may
We
be
don't know.
overconfident. I may have the framing bias, for example. So this I'm not rational for sure, and I know it. I can be only rational when, I don't know, cooking or writing
Yeah.
papers, yeah, as a pattern, yeah. But the rest is
No, we are not.
unfortunately, yeah. So we don't know. We will see, and
We
this
will
is our
see.
investment in belief,
Yeah.
yeah.
So just one of my students has a question for you. And Fatma, you can open your microphone. Fatma is one of my students and she's very much into finance. And I think she has a question for you if you
Yeah,
allow
please.
us.
Yes.
Just go for it, Fatma. Can you open the microphone?
Hear me?
Yes, we hear you, Fatma. Go for it, please.
Okay, thank you. Firstly, hello, Professor.
Hello.
I want to thank you for your comprehensive and informative presentation. I have a question about the cryptocurrencies, and because nowadays they are so popular. And as you know, due to the global virus epidemic, restriction and quarantine precautions have made this digitalization an essential part of our daily lives. And this has also accelerated the developments in digital payment instruments. And do you think this digitalization process has a significant impact on the value increase of cryptocurrencies?
Yes. So cryptocurrencies is another bubble, I guess. I don't know,
Yeah,
just
and
we would like to hear your insights about it.
it's difficult to call cryptocurrencies currencies because they are not defined. They are not under this definition of currency, because currency is when you can pay directly for goods. I remember when I was in Turkey, I was able to pay with my bitcoins for coffee, but it was first exchanged for Turkish lira. Yeah. So I call the Bitcoin and other instruments, crypto, as the investment speculation instruments, in fact, because they are not even investment, and like gold, maybe more. The Bitcoin is more similar to gold than to currency. In my opinion, we have also China providing yuan, cipher yuan. It is not cryptocurrency, but it is a digitalized yuan. And European Union is also going to change euro for this kind of currency, and then it will be currency, because you will be able to pay with this currency for goods, or in Europe, they are going to use it for financial markets, for the exchanges in the first step. So this is a bubble, of course, and maybe what I found in some research about the cryptocurrency, it's a kind of sentiment measure. So when the markets are optimistic, then prices are going up. And when they are becoming less optimistic, that the prices are going down. But we have to remember that with Bitcoin, for example, there are investors possessing huge amounts of Bitcoin. So it's when they want to change the trend, it's they can sell just a small piece of their possession of Bitcoin. And when investors are analyzing the markets with the technical analysis, which is the only one that you can apply for Bitcoin right now. So if they can see the form of like that the signal that the markets will go down, then you can see the wave that the markets are going down until the next signal that it should go up again. And it can be a huge manipulation. We don't simply know how the markets are, the Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies are so-called currencies influenced and manipulated. But well, if you want to risk, well, it's a good place to rise your adrenaline. Yeah, for example, and I did it for just for 2 months. It was, but then after 2 months of analyzing, I decided to quit. And but I was also digging Bitcoins in the beginning when it was easier to dig. But I sold it in the very beginning with a huge loss comparing.
Really?
Yes, because well, it's
You
the
shouldn't have.
situation was, yeah, I'm not lucky in winning. Only
You
hard
could have
work.
been a
Yes.
millionaire, you know, just the price
Yeah,
that went up
exactly.
incredibly.
Yeah. So it was unfortunate, but well,
Yes.
this is the luck and fate.
Thank you so much. Do you have any questions?
No, thank you.
Thank you so much,
Thank you for your
Fatma, for your
contribution.
question.
So I hope to see Fatma maybe next time when I'm on my Erasmus trip to Ankara. I'm going.
It would be great.
And you
It
have
would be great to have you here.
to come to Poland as well. And we have many students from Turkey.
Yeah.
And so I hope to see you in Poland, and I will come as soon as possible to Ankara. I'm missing Ankara very much.
We will wait for you. Thank you so much, Professor.
Thank you very much.
So if you don't have any other questions, I'm going to end this session and we will start the other sessions at 12. Thank you so much, Professor Bolek, for your valuable contribution and for your humble attitude. We're so proud to have you here. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. And I count for the further cooperation with Ankara. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So Professor Karapınar, I think it's your turn. We're going to close the session.
Thank you very much, Professor Monica Bolek, for your presentation. If you have a time, I would like a question before closing the session. Which types of steps taken by Poland government to tackle COVID-19 economically? If you look at the United States declare a stimulus package. A stimulus package include direct support to citizens. Which types of steps taken by the Poland government?
Polish government is reacting. Right now it's a populistic government, so they watch the number of support in between the voters, and so as we could see on the market reaction, this is the response to the policy of government. So the policy is changing quite often. And it is, of course, the situation is dynamic, so we cannot expect a long-term strategy. But generally, people are not, how to say that, just I would like to be, but not to criticize the government too much, because I believe that they are doing their best. But they are not consequent, and the result. I mean, Polish people used to work hard, and you know, they don't need government support, because in the communistic time they had to manage, and right now we are managing. So I can see the business.
There is no expectation from the government.
Yeah. So exactly, yes, no expectation. And well, some even restaurants are getting better because they are sending meals by delivery agencies, and there is no such a problem, and the support is not sufficient, I would say. And so the reaction is, as you could see on there is a huge variability of the prices.
There is a similarities between Turkish government and Poland government. We don't expect many things from our government. Turkish people used to work hard, similar to Poland government. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much,
Professor. Thank you. This is the last key speaker. We will be together.
Professor, sorry. Zhang is connecting now, Professor
Yeah,
Zhang.
okay.
Sorry, I want to thank you, Professor Bolek, for instructive speech. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Professor Zhang, do you hear me? Do you hear me?
Yes, I'm here. I can hear you.
Oh, okay. This is our last keynote speaker today, Professor Zhang from Guangdong University from China. First, I want to introduce Professor Zhang. Dr. Zhang received her PhD degree in tourism management in 2050 from Sun Yat-sen University. She now is a research fellow of Guangdong Institute for International Strategies and associate professor in the School of Business of Guangdong University of Foreign Studies. She published academic papers in well-known journals in tourism research, such as Tourism Tribune and Human Geography. She was founded by the National Natural Science Foundation of China with a project of linguistic languages research. Her research interests are cross-cultural, sociology from tourism, and linguistic landscapes. So, Professor, at last we connected.
Yes, I'm sorry.
No, it's my fault. I'm sorry. Pandemic breakdown has made a great damage on tourism and marketing sector, as we know. So we have an international view, and we listen Professor Zhang. You can share your screen if you want, Professor.
Okay. Can you see the screen right now?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. I'm sorry because I have some technical problem. I'm Hong Zhang from Guangdong University of Foreign Study. Today I'm going to show a case study, a hostel with very quick response to the COVID-19 in terms of the marketing strategy in our China. So I will divide it into my presentation into 4 parts. The first part, I will briefly introduce the COVID-19 situation in China, and then I will also introduce the destination Yangshuo and the hostel in which, and the third part, I will utilize the mobility paradigm to analyze the mobility as an external factor influencing the marketing strategy. And the last part, I will give some conclusion based on my research data and some further discussion. Okay, and let's move on the first part. Most of us know about the disease is from the December of 2019, and it became the national epidemic situation since the 21st of the January of 2020. Since the January of the 2020, most of the cases has been diagnosed, and a city called Wuhan and province Hubei have been strictly shut down. That means no one can come in and come out from these areas more than 40 days. And here, let's see these diagrams. This is from the statistic bureaus of our countries. It illustrates the case of the COVID-19 in China since the first case diagnosis. The peak of these 3 nights located in the end of the February, because at that time the government take it very serious and start diagnosis the people, and also the diagnosis technique is very helpful, so that we will have a very sharp increase diagnosis cases at that time. And at that time, the individual movement is suspended all over the countries. That means people will stay at home. Actually, at that time, we will have our Lunar New Year holiday. And after the holiday, we work at home without any movement. And the government strictly control the port of the entries, especially the COVID-19 has been announced as the pandemic global situation. Basically, no foreigners can enter China at that time. Some of them, they may fly to China, but they have to be in quarantine for 40 days and give some tests. The policies has stopped a lot of the inbound tourists. And let's see, before the 8th of the May of 2020, the long-distance movement is not encouraged in China by the government. For example, to city, we are not so encouraged people moved because the contagion risk is very high in the public transportation. But let's see, from the 1st of the May to the 8th of the May, we have a very, very low numbers of the new cases day by day. It seems that the pandemic situation are under control. So the government has launched a guideline, what we call is called the normalized management of the COVID-19, which encourage the people go back to the normal life with the conditions of the protecting themselves very well. Here is I generate some ideas of the COVID-19 since the 8th of the May of 2021. The 8th of May of 2020, the State Department of China government announced a guideline for the COVID-19 normalized management. And for example, the activity inside China mainland seems go back to normal thanks to this guideline. In this guideline, it proposed that such like our school will reopen so that our kids can go to school again, and the individual movement across country can be achieved. And some tourist activities are also relaunched. For most of us who stay in the China and seem go back to the normal life. And here is the data from the Ministries of the Culture and Tourism of the People's Republic of China. We can see that in 1929, we have the 6 billion domestic tourists, but thanks to the COVID-19, we dropped to the 2.79 billion in 2020. But when we see the tourists, the number of the tourists by quarters of the 2020, we can find out that the number are increasing since the second quarters. That means the 8th of the May, the normalized management has been launched. We have the increased numbers. And because this is a very new situation, especially it's very challenging time for our tourism industry. So in this context, some scholars has identified some new trends of our tourism, such like we will merge the culture and the tourism world for the people maybe get well in the cultural tourism. But I think among most of these ideas, the focus on the economy of the scope rather than the economies of the scale is I may think is important in my in these studies, because the mobility is very weak, so that the economy of the scale may not can be achieved in this time. We can focus on the economy of the scope of our tourism industry. And now I will go to the second part about the case background. This case site is called Yangshuo. Yangshuo is a famous international destination which is known for the karst landscape and the Lijiang rivers. And it is the first patch of the destination which is open to the inbound tourists since 1979. And from the 1979 to the 2013, it has received more than 19.9 million tourists, and most of them are backpackers. This is a very famous backpacker destination around the world and around the backpacker communities. And let's see the location is located in the southern part of the China, and we can take a closer look. Is very near our what we call is the Pearl River Delta. We have the cities such like Guangzhou, Zhuhai, and Shenzhen. We're also very near the Macau and Hong Kong. And it takes around 2 hour high-speed train from Guangzhou to Yangshuo, or maybe you can drive by yourself. It takes around 5 hours to go there. So it is a very good destinations, and as we can see, the karst landscape and the good outdoor activities and the very peaceful countryside life, all of which are very, they attract the inbound tourists. But when we see the numbers and the data of the tourism industry in Yangshuo is very bad. As we see the inbound tourists, I mean the foreigners, dropped 93% compared to the 1929. And this number is very ugly, and because of the very strong control of the inbound tourist policy, there is no foreign markets in 2020 for Yangshuo. Foreigner tourists have been blocked outside these countries. And the number is very bad. And some of the hotel, of the restaurant in Yangshuo who have won the business for the foreigner market have been shut down and just changed their business. That is why I will choose these hostels for my case. Why? Because maybe the owners, they are my friends, just kidding. But because they are my friends, so I know their business are still very well, very good in 2020. So I keep this curiosity and to ask them why, and to investigate why they can still keep such a good numbers. And this is the hostel background. This is hostels, or maybe we call it the resort with 29 rooms in Yangshuo. It can be seen it's a very good view of their amenities and their service and their location on the traveler's choice on the trip advisor. And we can see the amenities, they are very good for the family tours with children, right? And the pool with the view and the pool. It is attracts a lot of the foreign markets, especially for the family tour. And as we see, this is the photos with the rooms and the very good pool and the outdoor restaurants and some guests, they take the photos. And let's see, we still remember they dropped 93% of the foreigners markets. But let's see the numbers of the guests received by these hostels. We can see that in 2019, they received the total foreigner guests is 13,000, and in the 2020 they still have the 6,000 foreigner guests. That means only dropped 15% of these backgrounds. So it is maybe attracts me why they can still do a little bit better and compared to the average rate. And here we also can see the occupancy rates of their hostels from the 2019 and 2018. And as we see from the April on, they just go up with the normal rates of the one in the without the COVID-19. And here is we have the average room price. I show you because it didn't show that it is maybe they just to keep the room rates down so that they can attract the markets. It's not so it's not the case, because they just maybe go back to the normal rates as the one before the COVID-19. And here, as we can see from the April and May, when the guidelines of our normalized management help, so the room rates and the occupancy rate just go up with this one. Okay, this is the background of our case, and this is also the background of the pandemic in China. And then we will talk about the mobility paradigm and the marketing strategy of these hostels. Why they can still keep a normal good business situation in this pandemic time, because they focus on the mobility program with their marketing strategy. Okay, and this program usually used in our human geography and the sociology. And the mobility program is developed by John Urey in 2003. And they said, maybe we use this mobility paragraph, we can focus our fluid society, and we know the people why they will change their destination, why they can, the capitals and all the things are fluid all the time. These paradigms exempt how social relation necessity, the intimate and interesting movement of the people, objects, information, and image across the distance. It has been shown how social sciences leads to reflect, captured, stimulates, and interrogates such a movement across variable distances. This paradigm forces us to attend the economic, social, and cultural organization of the distance and not just the physical aspect of the movement. I believe that this paradigm helped us to understand in the pandemic time, in the COVID-19, how can we deal with the market and our business or tourism business. And here I give the 2 time points on our conflict time. The first time point is before the 23rd of January 2020, the pandemic didn't appear and the COVID-19 didn't diagnosis at that time. And another time point is after the 8th of May, because we have the normalized management guideline, so that something just go back to normal in China. So we have some different periods in this COVID-19. Before the 23rd of January 2020, we are very fluid world, just like the John Urey said, with a very strong mobility. The people, objects, information, and capital can move or can be moved very quickly and easily around the world. But from the 23rd of January 2020 to the 8th of May, we are strictly obey the guideline of the prevention disease. We stay at home, work at home, and with very limited movements. And the entry of the port have been shut down. We have the limited connection with the group in China. So we have the very weak mobility inside China and almost have no mobility with the international world. And then after the 8th of May 2020, we go back inside China. We have the moderate mobility. We go back to the normal life. But we still have a very strong limitation with the international mobility. So in this context, in the very strong mobility, the small enterprise offer the single product. In our case, they just offer the accommodation to a very large market. They can access. That is accessible. And the internet, the word of the mouth are the main channel to attract the markets outside Yangshuo, outside China, because the foreigners and the inbound markets are very easy to access and they can go to the destination to have their single product. But from the 23rd of January to the 8th of May of 2020, we have the very low mobility time. And the owner said they shut down the hostels for 2 months because they didn't think they will have the market. So they offer no product to this market. They spent half of the month at their hometown for their New Year's holidays, and then they spent half of the month to redecorate their rooms. But most of the successful way is the seeking the cooperation opportunity during this pandemic, this no mobility time. She make contact to some restaurants or restaurant and the others, some facilities and some companies just offer the same offer the product to their same markets. And says finally find a restaurant in Zhuhai, and they have a city very near Macau. They have the Western style restaurant. They can offer the cooperation opportunities to their to their hostels. They rent the outdoor restaurant of this restaurant. So the people in Zhuhai, maybe they will send the chief and send the chef and send the employees to Yangshuo for some training and for accommodate for the maybe the newly open markets. And most importantly, they also bought the foreigner markets of the Zhuhai of their restaurant to Yangshuo. And after the 8th of May of 2020, mobility inside China returned to a normal rate, and their hostels also ready for receiving the tourists. They developed the combined products such like the accommodation, then F&B, which is rent to the Zhuhai, and they also the lady says they still have a lot of foreigner after May because the foreigner inside China, they can't go back home, they can't go abroad for the holiday, but they still have the Easter holiday, the Labor Day, and the summer holiday. So they are eager to find the resource to have this one. Okay, and
you close.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yes, yes. Yes, it's okay.
Okay. So that is the last part of my presentation is about the conclusions. I got the conclusion which is connected to the economic of the scales and the economics of the scope. With a very strong mobility context, such like before the COVID-19, the small tourism enterprise are beneficial from the mobility, such as our body move very quickly, the information and the capital, which is fluid around the world. And these all of them contributes the economy of the scale for the small enterprise in the tourism industry. But when the COVID-19 happens with this very weak or no mobility context, the small tourism enterprise should have find a way to make it survive in this industry. The small tourism enterprise can be beneficial from the more local or focused markets, which usually linkage to the other destination in the strong mobility period. So the economics of the school may be helpful in their business, such like the case I introduced, they just find the foreign market inside China who cannot just go abroad or go back to their home countries for holidays or vacation, whatever. And this is what we have to find the local or the focus markets here. And now I may have the further discussion, the mobility paradigm should be revisited because it is very old paradigm in the 2003. And for more detail in the scope and the distance we should enroll in discussion. And the economy of scales and the economy of the scope can be discussed further in the tourism industry with merging the mobility paradigm. Okay, here is my presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor, for your speech. And is there any question for Professor Zhang? Yes, Ismail is one of our students who want to ask a question. Open your microphone, Ismail. Yes. Yes. Ismail, where are you? Ismail means the permission is needed.
First of all, I would like to many thanks to Associate Professor for her contribution to such an outstanding organization. I would like to learn what could be a specific strategy that would provide competitive advantage in the normalization process. I mean, after the overcoming the pandemic period.
Okay, I'm not sure I have understand your questions. You means how can we develop our competitive advantage after this pandemic time? Is that right?
Yeah, you are right.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Okay. Here it is very during the pandemic time, a lot of business have been shut down in the destination because the tourism is a very fragile industry. that is easily influenced by the external factors, such like this pandemic time. So in my opinion is that maybe you can have the idea is when you face on the this challenging time, what can you survive in these markets? This is very important because in this pandemic time, a lot of the business have been shut down because they didn't get the plans or the marketing strategy when they are doing this survival strategy, right? And if just I said in my case, they just shut down all the hostel for 2 months because they believe that the cost saving is the survival strategy for this tourists for this small enterprise, because they are very lack of the capitals from outside. They just maintain by themselves. So maybe the cost saving strategy is the one way to get you survive in this pandemic time. And another one is maybe you may have to focus on the external factors, such like the government's policy and the whole society response to this pandemic, because the people are so because in my opinion, Chinese people are very obedient to the government's policy. They understand maybe it's for the greater good, so that people just stay at home. And maybe you can do some research about the social response to the government's policy. And the third one is the most important one, is during this time, they are seeking the opportunity to cooperation with the other small tourism enterprise, because they are not the international brand with a lot of the capital. So that maybe the small enterprise with the small enterprise, they keep each other to bring the markets together for the same or the combined product to build their competitive advantage. I believe that the survival is the key point during the pandemic.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your consideration.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor. We thank for all our keynote speakers for their instructive speeches. And I give the word to our chairman, Professor Dr. Aydın Karapınar. Thank you very much, Dr. Zhang.
Thank you very much, Professor. I would like to ask a personal question. Professor, have you been vaccinated? Have you been vaccinated?
Not yet, because I'm in the queue right now. So a lot of the people are queuing for the vaccinated.
Yeah. Okay, thank you very much for your presentation.
Okay, thank you.
See you.
Thank you very much. Now we shut this session and we started the next session at 1 o'clock. Thank you very much. Have a nice day.